Hello and welcome back. Can Nigeria's painful economic reforms finally deliver the jobs and better living standard that millions of citizens have been waiting for? That was the challenge thrown at policymakers by the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who says reforms alone are not enough unless ordinary Nigerians begin to experience real improvements in their daily lives. Her remarks comes at a time when the country is pursuing major economic reforms, while many households continue to struggle with inflation, high cost of living, and unemployment. Speaking at the opening of the 7th Africa Emerging Markets Forum in Abuja, Okonjo-Iweala urged Nigerians to remain committed to macroeconomic reforms while ensuring that the benefits reach citizens through job creation, improved incomes, and stronger economic opportunities.
The global order created in the wake of World War II to foster stability, predictability, peace, and prosperity is experiencing the most severe disruptions of its 80-year existence. So much that shaped the world we know is being called into question. From the role of the United Nations and other multilateral organizations like the World Bank, the IMF, and the WTO, my organization, to even the very notion of a system based on rules rather than naked power. In a famous speech earlier this year in Davos by McCartney, and I was sitting right under his nose in Davos when he gave this speech, the Canadian Prime Minister, he declared the global order to be in the midst of and I quote, a rupture, not a transition. He's right that major structural shifts are shaking both domestic politics and the wider world. But I differ slightly in interpretation because I do not believe that these shifts are leading to a less interdependent world. What we are seeing is not the end of globalization, but its transformation from cooperative to competitive interdependence. States compete vigorously, but within a global economic system they cannot afford to abandon. They seek to outpace rivals, but without sacrificing the benefits of economic integration. The hope that global economic integration will produce geopolitical harmony may have faded, at least for now. But this emerging era of competitive interdependence only makes the case where rules-based systems stronger, not weaker. In the first segment of my remarks today, I will look at how geopolitical and other shifts are contributing to rising uncertainty. I'll then focus on why geopolitical rivalry and uncertainty has so far not translated into declining global trade and major fragmentation, despite numerous predictions to the contrary. Finally, I will look at the genuinely exciting opportunities that exist even amid today's uncertainties for countries to use global trade to drive growth, job creation, development, and economic resilience. And this is a conversation the governor and I were having before coming into this room, and I think we'll have during our chat together. Now, starting with the structural sources of today's uncertainty, let's look at 5. First, the balance of global economic power has changed dramatically within the space of a generation. In 1995, advanced economies accounted for about 60% of global economic output in purchasing power parity terms, and developing countries only 40%. Now, these shares have flipped thanks to 3 decades of faster growth in the developing world, growth that open global trade helped to make possible. Although not all regions have been part of this rebalancing, Africa's share of global GDP remains stubbornly low. This shift has already sufficed to spawn anxiety and even resentment within many rich countries, stoking geopolitical tensions and affecting attitudes to trade and aid. Second, economic inequality within many countries has shifted upwards, with those at the upper end of the scale getting an increasing share of national income and wealth. Widespread perceptions that the rich are getting richer while others lag behind are fueling angry politics and unstable policy. According to the report to the G20 by a committee of independent experts on global inequality, led by Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, over 2/3 of the global population live in countries where the top 1% have increased their share of income since 2000. If truth be told, national governments and international institutions have struggled to respond to these shifts. These struggles have created fertile ground for anti-system narratives, as many people in rich and poor countries feel that the established order is not helping them cope with the changes. Trade in particular has been blamed for job losses, for inequality, for empowering geopolitical rivals, and more. To be fair, much of what is currently being laid at the door of trade and the trading system, in fact, owes more to other forces. More jobs were lost to automation than to import competition. To help people and places adapt, governments need to put in place strong active labor market policies and social safety nets. Not all of them could do this in a good way. Inequality has more to do with domestic tax and labor policies, which is why countries similarly exposed to trade have such different outcomes. Large trade imbalances are strongly correlated with protectionist pressures, but they are primarily driven by macroeconomic factors like domestic savings and investment rates and capital flows, not by trade policies. Both the World Bank and IMF research, as well as WTO, have been clear about this. Fortunately, Africa's leaders seem to be moving in the right direction, with Morocco using its phosphate resources to produce electric vehicle components for international markets, particularly Chinese automakers. In Zambia, DRC, Mozambique, and Angola, and here also in Nigeria, moves are afoot to see how to add value to critical minerals. But these efforts need more systematization and harmonization, including a look at sub-regional approaches so that countries are not picked off one by one in suboptimal bilateral agreements. The continent can seize green comparative advantages by harnessing abundant renewable energy potential to power minerals processing. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by noting that these two paths to global trade resilience, reforming the multilateral trading system and broadening the global economic base, are deeply complementary. To attract the kind of investments we've been talking about, developing countries will need to improve their business climate, upgrade hard and soft infrastructure, and provide a stable macroeconomic environment. In this regard, I want to commend the Central Bank Governor of Nigeria, Governor Cardoso, on the work that he and his team have done on currency and monetary policy stabilization. Nigeria needs to continue. Yes, you can clap for him. Nigeria needs to continue the work on overall macroeconomic reforms with a careful approach to fiscal issues, contracting of debt, and debt management. Above all, Nigeria needs to focus on creating jobs and economic opportunities for a young and hungry population. Nigerians have to feel the dividends of reform in the real economy.
According to her, countries that maintain economic stability, improve their business environments, and attract investment will be the best positioned to benefit from the changing global economy. Okonjo-Iweala noted that the global trading system is undergoing a major transformation. Companies around the world are reducing their dependence on small number of manufacturing hubs, following disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tension, and repeated supply chain challenges. As businesses diversify production and investment destinations, she believes countries that create stable and predictable economic environments will attract a greater share of the global investment. For Nigeria, she said that the opportunity is significant, but only if reform continue. She emphasized that macroeconomic stability, responsible fiscal management, and sustainable debt policies remain essential for long-term growth. At the same time, she stressed that the new measure of success is not simply economic statistics, but whether Nigerians actually experience better living conditions. Her message was straightforward. Reforms must translate into tangible results. While policy adjustments may improve investor confidence and strengthen economic fundamentals, citizens also expect more jobs, increased business opportunities, and improved purchasing power. Without visible benefits, public support for reforms may become increasingly difficult to sustain. The WTO Director General also addressed the broader future of global trade. Despite growing protectionist policies in some parts of the world, she pointed out that around 72% of international trade continues to operate under World Trade Organization rules. According to her, countries are increasingly entering regional and bilateral trade agreements that extend beyond tariffs to include investments, technology, and broader economic cooperation. Turning to Africa's potential, Okonjo-Iweala argued that the continent possesses enormous untapped opportunities. Africa is estimated to hold about 30% of the world's critical mineral reserve resources that will become increasingly important as countries transition towards cleaner energy technologies. Rather than exporting raw materials, she urged African governments to develop local processing industries capable of generating greater value, more employment, and stronger industrial growth. She also warned against increasing fragmentation in global trade, arguing that open and rules-based commerce remains one of the strongest drivers of economic expansion. According to her, predictable international trading system helps countries withstand domestic economic shocks while creating new export opportunities for businesses. Another key area she highlighted was investment. Developing economies hoping to attract international capital, she said, must improve infrastructure, strengthen digital connectivity, simplify regulations, and maintain stable macroeconomic policies. Investors, she explained, are more likely to commit long-term capital where governments demonstrate consistency, transparency, and institutional stability. Okonjo-Iweala further stated that Africa has demographic advantage of a rapidly growing workforce. Combined with expanding regional markets under the African Continental Free Trade Area, she believes that the continent can become a major contributor to global economic growth. However, she cautioned that this potential will only be realized through deeper regional cooperation, greater competitiveness, and continued structural reforms. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardoso, echoed many of these themes during this forum. He argued that Africa should not merely respond to changes in global economy, but actively help shape the emerging international economic order. According to Cardoso, the continent's youthful population, expanding consumer markets, and growing innovation ecosystem provide a strong foundation for long-term development. Speaking specifically about Nigeria, Cardoso said the central bank has focused on improving policy transparency, strengthening institutional accountability, and ensuring greater consistency in monetary policy. He maintained that rebuilding investor confidence requires credible institutions capable of implementing predictable economic policies over time. The CBN governor also stressed that sound macroeconomic management remains essential for sustainable growth. Stable policies, stronger institutions, and closer regional economic integration, he argued, will help create an environment where business can expand, employment can grow, and investment can increase. The remarks by both Okonjo-Iweala and Cardoso comes as Nigeria continues implementing wide-ranging reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy after years of fiscal pressure and foreign exchange challenges. While supporters argue that these reforms are laying the foundation for future growth, many Nigerians continue to face rising food prices, elevated transportation costs, and declining purchasing power. This has intensified public expectations that economic reforms should quickly produce visible improvements in everyday life. The central message emerging from the forum is that the economic reforms is only the beginning. Success will ultimately be judged by whether businesses create more jobs, whether investors increase confidence in Nigeria, whether industries expand production, and whether families begin to experience genuine improvement in their standard of living. As global supply chains continue to evolve, Nigeria has an opportunity to attract new investments, but turning that opportunity into lasting prosperity will depend on disciplined policies, stronger institutions, and reforms that deliver measurable benefits for ordinary citizens. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you find this report informative, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss our latest updates in Nigeria and worldwide. I'm Chimejim Okoro, and I will see you soon.